Have you ever caused an employee to be fired on the spot? Yes. I worked in a state office. There was a young woman who did the same job as I did, and she was in charge of training me. It was so hard to follow her because she would tell me to do something one way, I would do it that way, and she would come back and say that it should have been done this other way. This went on for pretty much the whole time I was employed there. It affected my work and made me look bad when all I was doing was what she told me to do. I got a terrible job evaluation. In all my life, at any job I've ever worked, I have never gotten a bad review. I was upset, but kept quiet. Then one day, my coworker in charge of me brought a jug of water to work. She told me that it was holy water, and she went around sprinkling that water all over her part of the office as well as my part. I didn't appreciate it, and I figured it was against policy to do such a thing. But once again, I remained silent. Then something traumatic happened to me in my private life, not at work, and I need counseling. I was raped. When I called the police to report it, I asked the dispatcher to please call my work and let them know I wouldn't be there that day. Well, they spread the word around the office. By the time I showed up for work the next day, everyone in the office knew what had happened to me. All the sideways looks, all the whispers really got to me. And then my two bosses called me into the conference room, closed the door, and began to question me about the grape as if I was on trial. To this day, I don't know what they were trying to accomplish, but it was humiliating. And I finally stood up and told them that they had no right to question me, and that I ought to report both of them. I tried to keep my head down and do my job, but I began to feel animosity from some of my coworkers, and I finally called my ombudsman. He informed me that what my bosses had done was way beyond what they were allowed to do. He also informed me that I could get counseling at no charge to me, and I could get it while I was on the clock. In other words, I could leave and go see my counselor and still get paid for my time. I could also turn in my gas mileage and be reimbursed for it. He set me up with a counselor and I started going to the appointments. Things at work just got worse because it really frosted my boss's butts that I was allowed to leave work, yet still get paid. My workload increased. I struggled to keep up. The stress was more than I could handle. Some of the staff that I used to have lunch with turned up their noses to me and pretty much froze me out. Finally, it got to be too much. I told my ombudsman that I was going to resign. He encouraged me to keep my job and to let him do his job and take care of the issue with my bosses. But by then, I was done. I was having anxiety attacks. I couldn't do it anymore. I resigned. My immediate supervisor was cold as ice. So was the co-worker who was in charge of me. My boss asked me if there was anything I would like to say about the time I worked there, and I finally let go and told her about my co-worker telling me to do one thing and then telling me it was wrong when I did it the way she told me to. And while I was at it, I told her about the incident with the holy water. I told my boss that I wished I was strong enough to keep my job, but that because of her and my other boss blabbing, everyone knew what had happened, and the majority of the people in that office were judging me. And then I walked out. I was at home a couple of days later when my phone rang. It was a girl at the office who had been in charge of my work. She told me they fired her right after I left on my last day because of the holy water. I didn't know what she wanted me to say. I mean, she did the deed. There was no denying it. So it was her fault she lost her job, not mine. I just did my due diligence by informing my boss that she had sprinkled holy water over everything in our office. So that young woman got fired because I snitched? It didn't hurt my feelings at all. Some years went by, and I needed to see a podiatrist, so I made an appointment. And guess who was working as a tech in that office? Yep, it was the holy water lady. She was shocked to see me and could barely contain her anger. It showed in her movements and in her attitude. She did her thing, left the room, and was replaced by another tech. I was glad, because I didn't want anything to do with that woman. I'm sure she hates my guts to this day. It's not easy to get a job with the state. It's job security if you do manage to get hired. I think she got what was coming to her. Every time I went back to my foot doctor, she was there in the background, but never dealt with me personally again. I had known that foot doctor for years. Before she got a job there, he and I had shared some of our private lives with one another and got along real well. So he treated me just as he always did. I do not take kindly to people mistreating me. I am not sorry she got fired.